those are the people I truly serve. The root of all our evil, it begins with the Federal Reserve. Hey, yeah, well, let's go back in time when everybody was so proud of a man.
I'm Tommy Salmons. This is Year Zero. Today, we have a special guest, Car Campett from Timeline Earth, to discuss Bitcoin and whether or not it's too late to purchase Bitcoin, invest in Bitcoin, use Bitcoin as savings. And my dogs are absolutely going to interrupt me. So, sorry about that. You will also hear them in the podcast later on. But before we get into the podcast, let me remind you, if you need any graphic design work, get a hold of Ryan Bunting at ryanbunting.com. He's the guy who made the logo for my podcast and also for my upcoming book of short stories. That would be ryanbunting.com. Good libertarian guy, and he does some really good work. Also, if you are a writer and you need an editor, contact ryanbunting.com and ask to speak to Trisha about her editing. Don't forget that it is that time of year for the Libertarian Institute Fund Drive. Go to libertarianinstitute.org, donate cryptocurrency or fiat. So keep that in mind. I'd like to thank Tom Burton for the music of Year Zero. And here is Car. All right, man. I am here with Car from Timeline Earth. You know, I still want to call y'all Friends Against Government.
Yep. Yeah, us too sometimes. Us too. But, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. I'm excited. I've been trying to think of for 2 years. I've been trying to think. I need to get them guys over here on my podcast. What can we talk about? And I know you've been into crypto, and I'm like, I haven't talked about crypto in a while, and I haven't had a guest on to talk about that. So I thought it was a good time, as good a time as any to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Love talking Bitcoin, man.
Yeah, for sure. And you had made a comment to me that to focus on Bitcoin and leave the others alone. So we're gonna talk about that and figure out why you say that and all that good jazz. But how do you? I want to start off, man. Like right after I asked you to come on the podcast, Elon Musk started pushing Bitcoin, and Tesla invested $1.5 billion in Bitcoin.
Yeah. There's some really interesting stuff going on. I was just DMing a guy, one of my mutuals, about it this morning, actually. But not only Tesla, but what MicroStrategy is doing is really interesting. And depending on which way you look at it, you could really look at it as if Michael Saylor, the CEO of MicroStrategy, is kind of placing a systemic attack on the United States dollar, the way that he's going about this. So it's really, really interesting stuff. This is the first Bitcoin cycle where, it turned into like almost a meme where everybody was talking about institutional money coming in. Institutional money has been around, but this is the first time that institutions seem to have been vocally joining and getting totally on board with Bitcoin. And by that, I mean, letting it almost sounds religious, but submitting themselves to Bitcoin rather than coming in and saying, hey, we're going to start controlling Bitcoin, saying, oh, I see what this is. I see what has been created. This is not to be controlled. We could not control it. We are just going to champion it. And so that's been super exciting. There's been a lot of big moves made. And for people like me who think that Bitcoin does have a legitimate shot at separating money and state, I think that this is kind of what the playbook in my mind had looked like for the last few years. Is we need to get a critical mass of powerful people. I know that there are a lot of burn it down types that say, no, we just, we need to have something just for us or something like that. But, if you're really serious about separating money and state, I think getting those powerful people on board and trusting that the technology behind Bitcoin won't allow it to be kind of corrupted or used against us, and I don't think it will. That's kind of what the playbook has looked like, is getting these powerful people on board so that there is a counter to the powerful people who are not on board. So that's all been, I've been watching that pretty excitedly for the last, well, really for the last 6 months. It's crazy how much things have changed in 6 months.
Yeah, and I'm coming from kind of the same place as you, the separate the government from the money, type situation. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, well, if Tesla is the first of the dominoes to fall, of big, sorry about that.
Oh yeah, you're good.
Of big companies that are going to start accepting Bitcoin, then who's next? Like how fast is this going to start picking up speed? And the price of Bitcoin just this year. I mean, I've been looking at it since 2018, and I was just always kind of like, I don't know. I guess I need to buy some. I need to buy some. And finally, New Year's Eve, my wife and I started buying Bitcoin.
Okay, good.
And we've seen it go up from, what was it, 28,000 when we bought it, to now, well, last I looked, I think it was yesterday, it was over 47,000 per Bitcoin.
I think it's at 52 right now. So you guys have almost already doubled your money in your initial investment 2 months ago.
Right.
Yeah. And it's still super early too. That's kind of a mindset that even I try to break myself out of, is, if you take the number of UTXOs, that's unconfirmed transactions. So every you count the number of addresses containing Bitcoin, and you say, okay, this is the maximum number of people that could possibly be in the Bitcoin network. Right now it's at about 70 million, 72 million. Let's call it, whatever, 70 million. And what is there? And that's the maximum, because people can have more than one UTXO. For example, I have many people have many, because you can have a very small amount in one UTXO. So, it could be, it's probably a small fraction of 70 million, but 70 million divided by 7 billion, you're looking at, less than 1% of the world is still in Bitcoin. I mean, we're still so early. It's tough to kind of wrap your mind around a $50,000 price tag for a Bitcoin, particularly from where it was. I think everybody remembers the first kind of allotment of Bitcoin they bought in the price, and you're like, A, you're celebrating because you made money, but B, also you're kind of mourning because you're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to stack sats the way that I used to be able to stack sats. And so we're still really, I don't even think we've hit the kind of rocket ship inflection point like what you were alluding to earlier, whereas what is that critical mass of companies that start to just say, okay, this is the future, and start accepting payments in Bitcoin, start paying in Bitcoin, maybe their employees' salaries in Bitcoin, and start converting their company's finances over to a Bitcoin standard. And as soon as that starts to happen, I think that this thing rolls over. I think it's game over. When you have those companies, and remember how powerful those companies are, I think it's gonna be a wild ride. I think it's gonna be an interesting year.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because I've heard a lot of people that say, "Oh, well, it's too late now. If I were going to invest in Bitcoin, I should have done it, a year ago or 2 years ago. Now it's too late. And there are too many people involved. I'm not going to be able to make any money at it, or it's not going to make any difference in my life whatsoever." So I'm glad you touched on that, because I think that's something that we all have to overcome. And those that are going to come in later, when they do recognize that companies are beginning to take it and they begin to accept it, they're going to be missing out tremendously on the benefits.
Well, yeah, and not only that, but if you take, I believe I worked out the math if you want to kind of stake your claim, if you treat the Bitcoin network as kind of the Wild West, and you want to stake your property claim, if you take 21 million total Bitcoins and divide it by 7 billion people, which is very conservative because Bitcoins have been lost, and sent to invalid addresses and so forth.
Mhm.
It's probably closer to 18 million. It will be the final, or I say final, but the rough final number. You need about 0.003 Bitcoin to stake your claim if everybody had an even amount all across the world, which even at today's price tag is $156 worth of Bitcoin. That's not, it's not that much. And imagine if you can get more than that. I mean, if you get $1,000 worth of Bitcoin right now, if you buy $1,000 worth of Bitcoin right now, you're probably looking at being in the upper, 10% of the world's wealthiest people when this thing fully monetizes. Maybe that takes some time, maybe that's 10, 15, 20 years, but that's pretty cool. We're still just to demonstrate how early we are.
Right. Yeah, no. And I guess one of the things that held me back was the new technology and not understanding how it worked.
Yeah.
So can you run us through that so that people that are new to the Bitcoin world kind of understand what it is that we're talking about?
Yeah, I can. And maybe I'd ask first, were you kind of a gold bug before that?
I think I still am.
Yeah.
I don't think that you should, diversification is good, and
yeah,
gold.
okay. Yeah, I was a gold bug. And again, because I came from a particular place, and my goal was separating money and state.
Mhm.
So gold unfortunately has gigantic flaws, and that I remember when I was first kind of toying with the Bitcoin idea as the solution, and that kind of hurt to confront as a gold bug. It hurt a lot. But the reality is that gold is very exploitable by states, as just read history. Gold has historically been an incredible money, but it does have some really fatal flaws, particularly in a global economy. It's just not very transportable, and so you have to start to rely on central clearinghouses and some layer above it that is either that's custodial, and very and exploitable, like for instance, like writing down IOUs, and ultimately fiat money. That's where it came from. Bitcoin attempts to remove any middleman by allowing each and every individual user to run the Bitcoin software, which holds all of the transactions that have ever happened and is able to trace back every single Bitcoin to its point of origin. And Bitcoin is issued by the mining process. Miners are, let's see, I'm going to try to navigate this in the most clear way possible. Miners act to confirm transactions into the network, and for that they are rewarded. They're rewarded with transaction fees, and for now they're rewarded with new Bitcoins that come into existence with each block, the Bitcoin block subsidy. That subsidy is slowly decreasing over time to the point where it will be zero, because Bitcoin is not inflationary. So your Bitcoin software that you run on your computer allows you to validate every single Bitcoin that is sent to you, and check it against the global ledger, and trace everything back to its point of origin to ensure it is not counterfeit. It also allows you to enforce consensus rules on the network, and it will reject any block of transactions or any transaction that is seeking to be confirmed that does not adhere to consensus rules. One of those consensus rules, probably the most important, is the 21 million Bitcoin cap. So when I run my software, I say, no, I will not accept anything that breaks these rules, and I will not accept any invalid Bitcoin transaction, and I will not accept any invalid Bitcoin. It doesn't matter if a miner sends me a block. It doesn't matter if an individual sends me a transaction to be entered into the blockchain. I will reject it. And we all agree on the global state of the transactions via a accumulated proof of work mechanism. And that's kind of how we all, without having a central server, agree on the truth. The ledger with the most accumulated proof of work is the truth. and it's a pretty nifty mechanism for all of us, probably about 100,000 people all around the globe to come to a consensus on truth in real time without trusting any central server.
Okay, so when you're breaking this down, what I'm thinking is with the, as well as I do, that the intelligence agencies are all up in our data, all up in our shit, right? There are hackers always trying to get a hold of people's financial information. What protects you from being hacked or being persecuted, for lack of a better word, for your use of Bitcoin or your acceptance of Bitcoin?
You and you alone, and good luck. And there's no other way to say it. That's it. You use public-private cryptography in order to keep a private key safe. And that private key is able to unlock the Bitcoins that are associated to public keys that are in combination with that private key. It is up to you to have good enough OPSEC to not expose your private key to anyone. And there are great methods that have been developed, to do so, as evidenced by the fact that there are tens of millions of dollars sitting on individual public keys out in space that haven't moved for 10 years and nobody's been able to hack them.
Right.
Probably hundreds of millions, honestly. And your day-to-day kind of information security to ensure that nobody knows how many Bitcoins, if any, you have. Now, some of us, I'm very vocal about Bitcoin. People know I have Bitcoin. But they don't know how many. And I like to keep that a secret that only I know.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you treat it like your bank account. You don't.
Yes.
Unless you're Donald Trump, you don't go around bragging about how much money you have.
And
even then, you're not even telling the truth. But
right, yeah, yeah. And I mean, and you'll see that. And there's a lot of that goes on. In fact, there's a couple high-profile cases recently on Twitter that I'm fairly sure are operational security. There's a pretty high-profile Bitcoiner that had a kind of an emotional flame out about selling all of his Bitcoin. You may have seen that about 3 or 4 days ago. I would not be shocked if he is running OPSEC and trying to convince people that he got rid of it and didn't actually get rid of it. There's people that believe that Peter Schiff is accumulating Bitcoin, and he's a vocal anti-Bitcoiner. It's all part of the game, man. And you need to do what you do, and what you'll find is that Bitcoiners that have been in for a really long time, that if you are putting 2 and 2 together, you say those guys are worth a lot of money. A lot of them live very, very kind of humble, private, quiet lives. And there's a reason. There's really no consumer protections for us. There's no you don't get your money back if it gets stolen. Right. So,
Yeah, well, you brought up Peter Schiff, and that is one thing I did want to ask you about. Was he's always talking about Bitcoin as a bubble, and that it's all speculative, and that getting in is a mistake because somebody's going to be left holding the bag. And so what I gather from his interpretation of what Bitcoin is he's looking at it as like it's stocks, like it's Wall Street.
Yeah.
Whereas you were looking at it as it is actual, money and currency to be utilized and used in the future. So how do you bridge this gap?
So I think that Peter Schiff and a lot of libertarians and Missassians try to kind of struggle with the idea of Bitcoin as money, probably because of the regression theorem. I saw a fantastic article written by Jeffrey Tucker, actually, and kind of trying to fill in or sharpen the image of what exactly the utility of Bitcoin is. And really, what he was saying was you need to separate the Bitcoin token from the Bitcoin network. The utility is actually the Bitcoin network. And that is a global, permissionless, censorship-resistant payment rail that settles nearly instantly with finality. That is its utility. It has all of these properties of money built into it, and then it has a token, the Bitcoin coin, that rides on top of it. And so, this thing has real life utility, unlike a stock or something like that. A stock is representative of a share of a company that will ostensibly have cash flow. Bitcoin is a network. It's a software network that allows instant or nearly instant global payments that are permissionless. I mean, that's an incredible thing. That's absolutely, it's never been done before in the history of man. You can now trade, you can now send value or receive value from anywhere in the world without asking anyone permission instantly with finality, and no one can tell you no. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, that's completely.
And not only that, to kind of step out ahead of his bubble theory, there's a finite supply. It's not like this. It's not like there are just Bitcoins being minted ad infinitum, and it just depends on more and more people coming into the network to until ultimately you reach some sort of saturation where the price will decline or something like that. Like, there's a limited supply here. And so as the network grows, the price grows. And that's just kind of it. And not only that, but as the network grows, the utility grows, because then there's more people that can send and receive value anywhere. So it's kind of a positive feedback loop. It's really, really a brilliant design.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what he's looking at is he's thinking that the early investors in Bitcoin are going to dump all their Bitcoin and make off like bandits, leaving people holding the bag as the price drops. And so people buying in at 47 or 50,000 per Bitcoin, if it crashes down to $7,000, they've lost, who knows how much money, depending on what they put in there. So I think that's what he's looking at. I don't think he believes that this will ever be an accepted currency on a wide scale.
Yeah. And I think I just think he's wrong. I mean, I think he's wrong. And I think I think he's so wrong that's why a lot of Bitcoiners, I think, are starting to wise up to the fact that he might be just running OPSEC, because his arguments are inane, at times. And he's smarter than that, or it's just an ego thing. I'm leaning more and more to the fact that it's OPSEC. Because I just legitimately think Peter Schiff is smarter than that. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but to not see, maybe it's an age thing too, but to not see the fact that all the possibilities that this not only will enable, but is enabling right now is crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Well, right. And so Bitcoin it protects against inflation as well. Am I correct on that?
It's inflation-less. There's a supply cap. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
because of the supply cap, you're not going to deal with the inflationary rates that you deal with the dollar or the pound or whatever.
Or gold.
Right.
Gold is inflationary. Bitcoin is not inflationary. Zero inflation. There is a supply cap. There is no supply cap with anything else. It is the first thing to ever achieve true scarcity. Digital scarcity, no less. It's truly unbelievable. And now it is inflating right now as we issue the coins. But about 90% of all the coins have been issued. So we're getting down to because every 4 years the issuance of coins cuts by 4 or cuts by half. We're at the next halving in probably early 2024. The inflation rate of Bitcoin against its existing stock is actually going to be less than gold, and then after that it will just get drastically less and less and less and less than gold, until it's infinitely less than gold, because in the year around the year 2140 it will round to zero. It'll just round off, and there will be no additional Bitcoin coming into the system ever.
Yeah. And in the program, am I correct in believing or that the way that it's coded is you cannot create beyond that? There's a hedge that stops that from occurring.
So there's nothing to stop you from creating beyond that, but everybody running the software has the option to accept it. And do you think that people running the software are going to accept it?
Right. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not.
Right.
My node will reject anything. My node will not accept information from any node that says, no, the supply cap actually keeps going after 21 million. Now, I could program my node to say, okay, I'll allow some inflation after 21 million, or I'll allow a lot of inflation. I could program it any way I want, but I'm probably going to lose a lot of friends, and I'm probably going to be part of a very, very small network, possibly a network of one, just me.
Yeah. And so how much when somebody's first getting into this, I spend a lot of my time, because I'm a truck driver, I spend a lot of my time listening to audiobooks and listening to podcasts. So I'm catching this information as it's going by. But for your average Joe who's working 9 to 5, coming home, how much research should they be looking at putting into this? What books should they be reading? What articles should they be reading so that they understand what they're getting involved in whenever they start to utilize Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, a lot there. It's a huge space with just so much going on. I would say that the amount of time and effort that you need to put in to understand the core of what is going on is actually not that much. So I would suggest reading 2 books. One would be The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous, just to kind of understand what the value proposition of this is, particularly if you're coming from the gold bug side, as I was. And then read one book on or listen to an audiobook. I'm a visual guy. An audiobook would not suffice it for the more technical one for me, but everybody learns differently. Mastering Bitcoin by Andreas Antonopoulos is pretty good. Grokking Bitcoin is free online. That's pretty good. And there's a couple others that I hear are good. I have not read. So I would do one on kind of the why of Bitcoin, one on the technical how. Even if you don't understand everything, you don't have to really understand everything, but just to give yourself a good gloss over of what the hell's going on, so you're a little bit more confident about the Bitcoin network. And then read a couple how-to articles on sending, receiving, setting up storage and stuff like that, and you're pretty good. You're pretty much good to go. Then if you want to get weird, and do more cool shit with Bitcoin, the world is your oyster. You can go investigate any number of things. For instance, the stuff that people are I'm screwing around with on Lightning Network is really cool. And some software packages like BTC Pay Server is awesome. It's an open source free payment server. So no fees, no middleman. You can just take payments and process payments, and it'll link in, like if you have a t-shirt shop or something like that, link in with that and do that all, free and open source. There's just a million avenues that you can go down, but understanding the core of the Bitcoin software, what it's doing, and how to secure your coins, send, receive, and secure your coins, I think is probably where you want to start. And that's probably, honestly, if you really wanted to cut to the chase, you could probably do it in a day, maybe less. And you could probably listen to a couple select podcasts. Like I would recommend Guy Swan over at Bitcoin Audible. That's a great resource. Just go through and just look for like kind of beginner oriented episodes. I'm sure he has them labeled or some kind of notes. And that will give you a rundown. But once you get it, you get it. It's hard because it's only hard because it's something very different, but it's not really that hard conceptually. It's just different. And once it clicks, you just get it. You're like, oh, okay, this mechanism has to be like this because that's replacing this in the legacy system. Okay, now this has to be like this. Yes, okay, I understand that. So it's not hard to get up to speed with the core of what you really need to know, particularly if at first you only want to use this as a savings technology, and that is you want to receive coins and store them safely. That's pretty easy.
Yeah. And I just kind of I kind of laugh now that I think back on it, because whenever I started accepting dollars for work, I didn't know how money worked. I didn't know anything
Right.
about the currency. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like,
Got to go open a bank account. Okay. Got to get a routing number and an account number. Okay. Now I got to go give that to my employer.
right.
You know?
Yeah. And it's like, I don't even know what this shit all means. You know, it was years
Right.
later and I still kind of look at it like, what the fuck is going on here? You know, but
That's the funny thing is that once you start screwing around more and more in Bitcoin, it's anytime I have to interact with the legacy finance system is a headache. You're like, this, it doesn't make any sense. Bitcoin makes sense. It's very, very easy. It's very, very simple. Once you get your mind oriented to that new way of thinking, and then going back, you're like, oh my God, like what, this is miserable. It's just hurdle after business hours, and then it takes 3 days, and then I got to call this guy, and then I've got to get a routing number and account number, and it's just a nightmare.
Oh yeah, well, one of my favorite things is it takes them 30 seconds to pull money out of your account and 10 days to put it back.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's never made any sense to me. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. Yep.
Took you no time to take my damn money.
Yep. Exactly, man. Exactly. And once you get your Bitcoin, once you download the Bitcoin software, let it sync, and it takes exactly zero further effort or time on your end to receive and fully validate the legitimacy of any Bitcoin coming your way, and absolutely nobody can take it from you at that point. It's a beautiful thing, man.
So you want to talk about some Bitcoin software that you may recommend or people may want to look into and research?
Sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, the first thing I always recommend is running the original Bitcoin Core client. And that is Satoshi's. It's now the 21st iteration of Satoshi's original Bitcoin client. That is the software that will download the entire blockchain. It will itself go through and revalidate using your computer's processor every single transaction that's ever happened. It'll go through all the cryptographic puzzles and ensure their validity. That way, you have a full ledger of every transaction that's ever happened on the Bitcoin blockchain on your computer, and you can hold any dollars that are coming your way up to the light and say this is real or this is not. And it's very easy to do that. You can go to bitcoin.org, not bitcoin.com, bitcoin.org, and download the Bitcoin Core client. And when you do that, obviously it will, if you want to run the full archival version, in other words, you want to store every transaction on your computer, it'll take, you really should have a terabyte, 500 gigabytes minimum for now, dedicated to that. The software itself is very slim. I run my node on a Raspberry Pi with just a terabyte external hard drive. And you can do that now. What and then that will reach out, and you will then become part of this mesh network that is Bitcoin. That is the Bitcoin network, which is really cool. And other people can connect to you. You connect to them, and you strengthen the network, and you validate the rules, and you validate coins coming your way. It's incredible. Now, if you don't want to take 500 gigabytes on your computer, you actually can what's called prune that node, and you can go into the options setting and prune down to 2 or 3 or 5 gigabytes or whatever you want to do. And what it'll do is it'll go through and it'll still validate every transaction that's happened since 2009, but it will start dumping all the old transactions up to the most recent 2 or 3 or 5 gigabytes. So it's still effective to validate coins that are coming your way. Depending on stuff that you want to do down the road with Bitcoin, you'll probably want a full archival node, which is no big deal. You can just download it again, no big deal. But that is really the heartbeat of Bitcoin, and that is the core of what I would recommend as your software suite. So right now I'm running mine on a Raspberry Pi. I'm using something called Umbrel, UMBREL. It's like an all-in-one software package that runs Bitcoin and Lightning and stuff like that on my Pi, and I can connect all my wallets to it. Super cool, super easy. I would recommend something like that. if you download Bitcoin Core, you can download something like Wasabi Wallet, WASABI. I use that. Wasabi Wallet will automatically, you can use it as a wallet before Bitcoin fully syncs to the network. And once Bitcoin syncs in the background, Wasabi will actually connect to your local node. So it's using your node rather than some server somewhere. So Wasabi's great. Yeah, that's I keep it pretty simple. I and you can use the Bitcoin Core client as your wallet too. That's fine too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and
So you really only need to download one piece of software, and that's just the Bitcoin Core client.
Okay. Yeah, and yeah, one of the cool things I've noticed here in the last, I don't know, few months, I ran into, well, hold on, let me pull my phone up. I ran into this app called Liberty X, right? So I can go through Liberty X and I can find out which retailers in whatever area I am will allow me to purchase Bitcoin over the counter if I don't want to do it online.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So
oh wow, I didn't know that existed. That's cool.
Yeah, I was like, that's a pretty cool thing. So I can, like, it's like almost every CVS. If there's a CVS near you, you can go to CVS and you can buy Bitcoin, from the register, and they give you, they give you a little a slip with a key on it, and you go on about your way, and you have the key.
Oh my God. Do they, I mean, I assume you have to give them your ID and stuff like that?
Let me look at it. I've never actually purchased it that way, but I can open up the app and I can kind of tell you what it's.
Wow, that's wild.
All right, so I can go to browse. I can either start purchase and it'll pull up the ones near me where I can buy, or I can just hit browse locations, and then let me just type in my zip. So I'm not going to say that out loud. And yeah, okay. So we got Miller's Super Saver, which is 35 miles away. A Love's Truck Stop, and so. Yeah, if I pick it and then it gives me directions. It says check your limits below. And you purchase a pen with cash, and then you redeem your pen in here and you transfer it to your wallet.
Oh, wow. That's wild.
Yeah. So I thought I ran into that just by mistake, just running around searching, and I downloaded it on my phone just to see what it was all about. And I was like, hey, this is pretty interesting. So the network is expanding, and the way that it is being viewed in the public is beginning to expand. And I think that's, ultimately a good thing. And like you said, it is very early. I mean, you have one major corporation in Tesla saying that they're going to accept, Bitcoin, payments for their cars. And I can't imagine how many are coming after them, how long before Amazon is on the bandwagon. So.
Oh yeah, dude. Yep. Yeah, no doubt, man.
But okay, so when a layman is looking at this, because you've covered a lot of it, and some of it, even with me and messing around with Bitcoin, some of it is still a little bit like, kind of like, whoa, that seems a little bit technical and a little difficult, even though I understand that. Oh, okay, I see what he's saying there. How should a layman approach it?
I would come to terms with the fact that you should put on, turn your brain on. You are going to have to kind of think about a new way of doing things. And I would be highly careful about cutting corners, because, you don't want to lose your money. But all that said, it's pretty simple overall. And what I would do is I would just cut out all the noise. Don't think about any other cryptocurrencies. They're all pretty much bullshit. Don't think about the flashy products. Don't think about, just download Bitcoin Core, read a little bit about how it works, and go and buy Bitcoin, a little bit of Bitcoin from somewhere, and send it to your Bitcoin Core wallet. I think at that point you got skin in the game, and now you're going to be a little bit motivated, and you're going to see the power that's at your fingertips. Honestly, I think that's what I would do. I would download the Bitcoin Core client and then download an additional wallet if it's going to take the client a while to sync. Like download Wasabi, and that way you're able to receive instantly. Wasabi is just going to reach out to other Bitcoin nodes that are not yours, which is fine, especially for small amounts. And download it or download something on your phone, like Blue Wallet on your phone or Samurai on your phone. And go out if you already have an account with Cash App or wherever, if you can buy Bitcoin and actually withdraw it, which I don't think you can from things like PayPal and Robinhood. So make sure you can withdraw it. Go out and buy $20 worth or whatever is a throwaway amount for you, and send it to your Bitcoin Core client or your wallet, and just get a feel for it. That'll get you through generating a receive address, copy pasting that receive address into your exchange, and sending to that receive address, and watching it come into your wallet, and then watching it confirm on the blockchain, on the ledger. That I think that in itself is such a big step in the process, and realizing, oh, okay, so basically I can send money with a couple of clicks and it's just there.
Right.
I think that's a pretty big step. That's a pretty critical step, and I'm a hands-on guy, so that's big for me. And then you can start to and remember, it's really not all that complex. Really, this is just a network allowing you to transmit value anywhere. So if you've done that, you've learned a lot already. And then maybe listen to some Bitcoin podcasts and listen to some read some Bitcoin articles. What I would say is, don't read about Lightning Network yet. Just understand the base layer. That is the most important. Don't read about other cryptocurrencies. And I mean, I always hesitate saying stuff like that because it's like, I want people to read about them to understand why they can never work like Bitcoin. But at the same time, I'm just trying to save you time. Like they're pretty much all just bullshit. They're not going to be able to do what Bitcoin can do. So, do whatever you want there, but you can save yourself a lot of time by just really understanding the basics of how this thing works on a base level: sending, receiving, storing.
Yeah. Well, and what I found that was my number one catch up. It is paralysis by analysis. It's like, if I'm going to spend money on this, I want to make sure, that it's worth the money I'm spending on it. And what happened with us is we just had a couple $100 sitting in the Cash App, and I was just like, fuck it, buy it. Like, why not? What else are we going to do with this money?
Right. I mean, and that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it, because now you've got skin in the game, and you're like, oh, okay, I want to learn about this. Plus, you've now seen your money almost double. And that's cool, and that gets you excited. And I mean, I feel fairly safe in saying, if you're buying anytime around now, you're probably going to see your money increase. And also keep in mind, like the other thing that's helpful to get over is, when you buy Bitcoin, it's not investing your money. You're not like getting rid of it into a place where it's inaccessible. It's not like putting it in your 401k, or it's not like just getting rid of money by like buying a meal or something like that. You're simply just storing it in a different currency. So it's not gone. It's not like you can't, in an emergency, just convert it back to dollars really, really easily. So don't think about it like that. It's cash that you weren't using. So why not store it in Bitcoin? It's an excellent store of value. But you had $300 sitting in Cash App, not doing anything. Just flip it over to Bitcoin and just let it rest in Bitcoin instead of dollars. Easy as that.
Yep. Yeah, and that's exactly how I had to flip the script on my mind. Like, I'm not buying something, and this is just, it's like a savings account. It's just set aside.
Exactly, and that's how I think about it. Is it's my savings account, and man, once you have it set up where you are validating all your coins, you have all the coins within your control, and you treat all the cash that you have as kind of your checking account, and all the Bitcoin that you have as your savings account. And every now and then you open up, your wallet, and you're like, oh, okay, savings account is doing pretty well. And you understand that nobody can take that from you. And you can send that to anybody in the world without asking permission. And it's probably going to do nothing but appreciate as the network grows. That's a really, really great feeling.
Right. Right. Yeah, I've heard, I mean, and I don't, this is all speculative. I know that at this point, but I've heard people say that they wouldn't be surprised if it hits 150,000 by the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's, if I'm being honest with you, I think it's low. But it's a little bit hard to predict, but I think the point is that over time, particularly if you kind of look at it as a moving average and smooth out the peaks and the troughs, the direction is up. And the direction is up for real reasons. The direction is up because there is real utility being provided by this Bitcoin network, and there is a cap on supply of the tokens that ride on it. And so the more and more you onboard people, the higher that price must be, because supply is fixed, and as demand increases, that price increases. So the direction is up unless the fundamental value that the Bitcoin network is providing ceases to be valuable. And I just don't see a world in the very near future. I don't see a world in the midterm or really the long term that is going to not value, particularly in the current macro environment where central banks are doing just insane shit.
Yeah.
I don't see the value going away of owning stake in a global permissionless, censorship resistant payment network. It's I don't see that value going away. So
yeah, I know. I feel you. I completely agree with you. I just wish I would have bought it when it was at 9,000 a couple of years ago when I was looking at it the first time.
Find a Bitcoiner and they've got the same kind of story. It's rare that people don't, man. It's rare that people don't. Trust me, buddy. The amount of money that I've left on the table is just stupid. I mean, it's really stupid.
I interviewed
but the thing is, stay in long enough, and you start, then the next crowd below you is like, oh, I could have done this and then I could have done this. And it's like, but then you're sitting pretty and you're like, all right, dude, just wait for, 3 or 4 or 5 years. And then you'll have a crowd below you that's like, all right, I should have just done this and that, but then you're sitting pretty, that's the way it goes.
Yeah. About 140 podcasts ago, I interviewed the crypto curator. This was I want to say it was 2018. It was like 4th or 5th podcast I ever did. And then we talked about was cryptocurrency and mainly Bitcoin. And then I had Alex Merced come on and talk to him about Bitcoin. And I was really like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy some. And I just never did. And then all of a sudden I see it blow up and I'm like, oh Jesus.
Yep. And the funny thing is it hasn't blown up yet,
Yeah, exactly.
So it's
you've brought up a couple of times the other coins are bullshit. So you want to cover like the differences between Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, Litecoin, Dash, like whatever ones you think are big name that are getting a little bit of steam?
Yeah, I mean, we can. The overarching theme is that and I said this, I don't know if you heard, I did a kind of a beginner Bitcoin podcast over on Timeline Earth on my show on the Signal. The overarching theme the overarching theme is that all of these currencies, these cryptocurrencies exist because they're allowed to exist. Mm-hmm. Not because they say, fuck you, we exist. They exist because they're allowed by someone to exist, because the security around their network is so flimsy that a group of hobbyists could get together and totally mire their network. That's just the way it is. I think Bitcoin Cash is like the biggest fork off of Bitcoin, and I think the Bitcoin network is like 120 times more secure than the Bitcoin Cash network. The point is that the minute, if anything actually important or anti-state, like state threatening action was happening on any of these networks, they would and could, and most importantly, could be shut down very easily. And so I have no interest in that.
Right.
I don't have any interest in a network that the state could quash in covertly. It wouldn't even have to be a big operation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And no, I haven't listened to that podcast yet. It was going to be the first one I listen to tomorrow when I get back on.
okay. Yeah.
Yep. So I will definitely be checking that out, and I'll link to it when
Cool.
in the show notes.
Appreciate
So
it,
send people your way.
Great.
So all right. I really don't know what else to ask. Do you have any parting words, and like what people like to encourage people to get involved or anything like that?
Yeah, man. I mean, I would say if this is something that you're interested in, I think it should be. What, like we were talking about earlier, like what you did is just go ahead and get some skin in the game, skin that you can afford to lose. But maybe just a little bit more than that, like if you can afford to lose 20, maybe throw 25 in, just to light a little fire under your ass. What's the worst that can happen? You'll lose it, man. I've lost money before. It sucks, but you'll get over it. I think at this point, years ago, I remember before the previous bull market, like there was questions, like at least in my mind, of whether this thing would survive. And now you have Elon Musk buying $1.5 billion worth of it. Like, I mean, like, I guess what I would say is like, kind of grow some nuts. A lot of us were buying it when it was in its, and far before me too. We're getting into this when it was in its infancy, and there was nobody of any merit really co-signing it. And now you've got people like Elon Musk and real institutional investors buying it and holding it. Not only that, life insurance companies, which is insane. I mean, they're the most conservative companies. These companies have been around for many, almost 200 years in this country, which is a very long time for any American company. They're buying Bitcoin and they're using it as a store of value. They're holding it, and so when you look around at those people that are buying it and are buying it because they understand it, not buying it because, hey, it's a fad. How wrong can you go? That would be what I would say.
Yeah, man. And like you said, I just encourage people to jump in and just start, fiddling with it, even if it's like you said, $20, $15, whatever you got laying around, just see what you can figure out. Because I learned a lot more by just getting involved with it and start messing around. And I don't even really know how to explain to people how it works. I'm just like, oh, okay, I see how this works. Oh, okay, I see it. But I don't have enough, knowledge behind it to be able to explain to people. So,
yeah, man. Yeah, I hesitate to really endorse doing that because for some people they're just not learners like that, and I'm a very hands-on learner. But at the same time, I think that I think it's the best way, and I think it's the best way both because for hands-on learners and because it gives you skin in the game and it motivates you to then go and start actually learning, rather than what a lot of people do, and I did, frankly, for a while, was sitting around saying, oh yeah, that Bitcoin thing, I'm going to get to it, and then all of a sudden it explodes out from underneath you and you're like, shit. It's like,
yeah, but like you said, it's still early, and we can 70 million people, that's really nothing in the scheme of things. That's not even
and that's a conservative estimate. I would bet it's less than 10 million.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's less than the amount of people that voted for Donald Trump. So
yeah, right. That's right.
So there's that.
We think, I guess. I don't know. I have no idea.
So
I have no idea.
Jesus, I don't even want to get into that. I've done everything I can to avoid talking about the election on this podcast because I was just like, that's such a fucking nightmare. All right, man. Well, plug everything you got to plug, dude.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Well, first, thanks for having me on, man. I as I've said a million times, everywhere I go, I love talking about Bitcoin. I'm always happy to come on podcast talk about Bitcoin. I'm over at a podcast called Timeline Earth. You can find us on Twitter at Timeline Earth, timelineenearth.org. And we have the Timeline Earth main show, which is me, Bird, and Aaron. And then we each have a solo show, which comes on Fridays. And mine is heavily oriented towards Bitcoin and kind of like free and open source software and peer-to-peer technologies and stuff like that. And then we also have a fourth, Paz, who does kind of like a spooky, like cryptid type conspiracy-ish podcast as well, under the kind of the Timeline Earth banner solo show. So come see all of us and hang out, and feel free to email me at car@timelineearth.org with any crypto or Bitcoin, questions, and follow me at TLE_car.
Yeah, man. And I got to tell you, I want to tell you, y'all's show is so fucking entertaining. It's so
thank you, man.
Whenever I'm tired of listening to like Scott Horton and getting depressed about war, and
Right.
listening to Pete, and my mind is just like numb from all the thinking, I just go turn on Timeline Earth, and then I laugh my ass off. I'm like, this is some of the funniest shit I've ever heard.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah,
Thanks, man.
yeah. No, it's very entertaining. It's one of my favorite shows. I listen every week. I don't necessarily catch all y'all shows, but I do listen every week. I listen to at least one of y'all shows. So
Awesome.
and so y'all are doing some really good work over there, and I really, really appreciate y'all, and I appreciate you coming on, man. We'll do this again. We'll maybe do a more advanced course once I decide I'm going to read more on this.
Sure, man. Yeah, happy to come on anytime.
All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
Cool. Thank you.
If you're gonna play this game of pick and choose, well, it's a game that was made for you to lose. It doesn't really matter how many times, it's the same old worn out stories, same old lines. They're all pointing dirty fingers in hypocrisy, bragging on their feats of mediocrity again. Never really making any kind of change, but they keep on getting re-elected, and I find that strange. And that's why I say fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that have taken our freedoms. Yeah, I said fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that have taken our freedoms. What's it gonna take for you to see that we're living in a rigged democracy? People stand in line for the things that they've been choosing, paying no attention to the rights they keep on losing. But they all gather in the rallies and they chant their names, on goddamn well that it's all gonna be the same. Just 4 more years of war and taxes, 4 more years of them grinding down their axes. And that's why I say fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never